Hi everyone, thank you very much for watching. I always appreciate it. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. Only it's the beginning of October, so it's the first in my horror movie review series of October 2023. And this is my review of the 1974 70s classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, directed by Tobe Hooper, who brought us movies like Poltergeist, The Funhouse. He also directed Life Force, the miniseries of Stephen King's Salem's Lot. And this is one of those movies that I watched as a very young kid, probably had no business watching at all at the age of around like 8 or 9, but definitely stayed with me for a very long time. Though I was pretty desensitized at a very young age, this movie had quite an effect on me. And by the time I watched this movie, it had this reputation of this movie that was very, very scary. And even though it was built up a lot in my mind, I went into this movie thinking this wasn't going to be much. You know, it's an old movie. And at that time, I was kind of immature in my attitude towards older movies. And that would change in time as I got a little bit older and saw more older films and came to appreciate older films, since I started to realize a lot of the good stuff, a lot of the best stuff did come out in that 70s and early 80s period. And I remember watching this movie for the first time when I rented this movie with like an older friend of my sister who really wanted to recommend this to me and a friend of mine. I think there are a couple of reasons of why when I first sat down to watch this movie back in the day, it left me a bit underwhelmed. Those reasons being the guy that recommended this movie to my friend and I was really trying to scare us, and we could tell that he was trying to scare us with the way he was trying to oversell the movie to us. And when we saw the movie, we were in kind of a defensive mode, and maybe thinking a bit too immaturely in terms of having this mentality of like, bring it on, we could take anything kind of thing. I'd say that the second reason this movie left me a bit underwhelmed is that the movie is called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and with that title, I felt that there was a lot of blood, gore, and guts basically implied with this movie. And watching this movie, because this movie isn't a super bloody movie, it's not full of, like guts and brains and all kinds of bloody kills, even though there are some kills in this movie that are very effective. It really is more in the technique of the filmmaking and the aesthetic of the movie, the feel of the movie, where it really achieves its tone and its kind of hold on the audience in terms of bringing the scares. There are some off-camera kills in this movie that are very effective, even though you don't see any blood. It's because of the cinematography and the lighting and the sound design and the editing and the sound effects. And there are also some in-camera kills that are very effective as well because of the nature of the crimes that involve a big sledgehammer and a huge meat hook. At one point, somebody gets strung up on one like a huge, slab of meat. And also, of course, the chainsaw. For fans of modern day horror movies that really expect some carnage candy and full on gore in their horror movies, I think this movie can still satisfy your bloodlust if that's what you're looking for, because of the nature of the violence in this movie and because of how well it's executed by the filmmakers. It's still implied in a way that really is kind of disturbing and unsettling, and just the grindhouse nature of the look of the movie. So the five young people that are on this Texas road trip on this very hot August summer day are Sally, Franklin, Kirk, Pam, and Jerry. Jerry is driving this big green van that everybody's riding in. Kirk and Pam seem to be a couple, and Franklin and Sally are brother and sister. Franklin is a very kind of needy guy. At times he can be very annoying throughout the movie just because of the way he acts every now and then. He's in a wheelchair, so he's kind of restricted in what he can do in terms of just moving around, and he always needs somebody to help him out. At first, the road trip seems to be going okay for everybody. You know, they're chit-chatting during the ride, enjoying each other's company and everything. And then everything takes a slight turn for the worse the moment they decide to pick up a guy on the side of the road who's hitchhiking. And this guy is very kind of grungy looking. He has a bit of like blood on his face, looks like a blood stain. For those that haven't seen this movie and do intend to watch it, I don't want to reveal everything that goes on in that van, but what I will say is that there is a bit of self-mutilation done by the hitchhiker, and this really scares the crap out of everybody in that van. So they stop the van, the hitchhiker just jumps out, and as they start to roll out again to leave this guy there, he starts to kind of chase them and smear blood on the side of the van. The encounter with the hitchhiker leaves everybody a bit on edge and pretty disturbed for a little bit, but the further they go down the road, the more things kind of calm down. And then eventually they get to this old house that used to be Sally's old grandfather's house. And she gets a bit nostalgic as they kind of explore the house and, talks about, oh, that used to be my room and stuff. It looks like this, rundown, rustic, old shack, basically. and a couple of the people in the group hear about this place nearby that they can go swimming. And the one person that's really having a hard time through this whole thing is Franklin, because he's still very much on edge after what happened. And everybody needs to kind of just be patient with him because he requires somebody to help him out, since it's kind of rough for him to make his way through like the weeds and, like the hilly kind of parts of the area. And as you're watching all this go down, even though the hitchhiker is behind them, there is still this kind of impending sense of doom that these people are in for a bad time eventually, because, it is called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Something's about to happen pretty soon. The group is also in dire need of gasoline for the van, and as Kirk and Pam are walking around exploring and everything, all of a sudden they hear what sounds to be like the sound of a generator. And Kirk feels, hey, they must have some kind of gas since they're running this generator, so they decide to see if they could help him out. And they go to this house. Nobody seems to be around. And they figure, hey, let's just knock on the door, see what happens. Nobody comes to the door. Nobody. And I know if I'm at somebody's door, especially out in the country, I'm not going into some strange house. But I don't know. These people are different. Very different. So, yeah, Kirk just moseys on inside the house like it's okay to just walk into somebody's house even though it's not yours. And yeah, that is where things really do take a tragic turn for these, uh, you know, pretty dumb characters, to be honest. Basically, this house turns out to be a house of horrors, and from here on out, it is a nightmare for our characters. And I don't want to get into who lives and who dies. I'm going to save that for anybody that hasn't seen this movie. But this is the kind of movie that once you see it, it's very hard to unsee. The film also introduced audiences to one of the most evil and scariest boogeymen in all of cinema, the character of Leatherface, played by Gunnar Hansen, in a very memorable performance. The character of Leatherface was modeled after a real-life serial killer. In Wisconsin from 1947 to 1957, Ed Gein was a very old, disturbed guy who was the kind of guy that had no guffs about killing people, robbing corpses from graves. He was a cannibal at times. He was the kind of guy that kept corpses. Many heinous crimes that were committed by Ed Gein were used as inspiration for many of the events that would happen in the 1960 Alfred Hitchcock classic film Psycho, as well as used as inspiration for the 1991 film The Silence of the Lambs for the character of Buffalo Bill. And even though this is a movie that is purely fictional for the most part, if you look at old 1970s articles about disappearances in not just Texas but California, this is the kind of thing that you can see happening, which is something that really makes this movie all the more terrifying. For horror movie fans, I would say the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is definitely required viewing for anybody that wants to see one of the great classics of horror cinema. This is a 4-star masterpiece, and this is a movie that I highly recommend to anybody that wants to see a scary movie. This is a movie that is perfect for the October season, the Halloween season, and a movie that I do think you can find on streaming. But like I'm always saying, you should get yourself a hard copy. One day they'll be all gone, and you got to get them while you can, while they're still out there. This is my copy of the Blu-ray, the 40th anniversary edition. Some very cool special features on this Blu-ray, and as you can see, there is our boogeyman front and center, Leatherface himself. There is a remake of this movie that came out in 2003 that I do recommend because I do enjoy it, but for me there is nothing like the original. This is 1974's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is a damn good time if you're looking for a scary horror movie, and I do recommend this to everybody that just wants to be scared and entertained. There you go. Thank you very much for watching this classic movie review. If you're into classic movies and if you're new to this channel, hit the bell and subscribe and comment, share, like. It really helps out the channel. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for watching. I very much appreciate your support. Please look out for the next classic horror movie review. It is the spooky season of October, and so I'm going to be rolling out nothing but horror classic reviews coming out pretty soon. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of each other. God bless, and peace out.